I never thought in a million years that anything truly horrific would ever happen to me. I'm an average person with a boring enough life that anything unusual was really out of the ordinary. This is why I was always comfortable watching or listening to Creepypasta and true horror stories on YouTube. I still watch them often, but after my own experience, those stories scare me in a completely new way. It was late at night, around 4 a.m., though I'm not entirely sure. Everyone else in my house, my mother and both of my grandparents, was asleep. For the past 2 months or so, we'd been getting at least one major thunderstorm each week, and this one happened to start earlier that evening. Now, I've always enjoyed a good thunderstorm, especially at night when you can sit by the window and watch the lightning, but something about the wind has always creeped me out. Maybe it's the way it can go from soft to deafening in an instant. For some reason, wind has always unsettled me. This particular storm was one of the worst we'd had in a long time. It sounded like rocks were pelting my window all night. Despite that, I was enjoying listening to it while browsing Reddit, as I usually do, when suddenly the power went out in the blink of an eye. It was a bit creepy, but I didn't mind too much since I had a good charge on my phone and data to keep browsing. After a while, I started to feel tired, so I decided to turn off my phone and get some sleep. I placed it on the table beside me and rolled over. I must have fallen asleep quickly because I don't remember much after the sound of the rain hitting my window and the eerie calm of the wind. I assumed the rain had stopped while I was asleep because when I woke up, the house was silent. I rolled over to get more comfortable, but my side was aching, and I realized I was incredibly thirsty. I tried to fall back asleep, but my mouth was too dry. After a few minutes, I gave up, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight to head to the kitchen for some water. As I opened my bedroom door, I was hit by a blast of cold air. The living room was freezing. I quickly threw on a sweater and continued to the kitchen. As I got closer, the wind outside seemed to get louder, and the temperature inside dropped even more. I finally reached the kitchen, grabbed a glass from the cupboard, and started to fill it with water. As I did, I noticed something odd. The patio door was open. Naturally, I was a little freaked out, but I convinced myself that my grandfather had left it open earlier and forgot to close it. I walked over to the sliding door, glanced over my shoulder out of paranoia, and then shut and locked it. I quickly made my way back to my room, shut the door behind me, and lay down in bed. My glass of water sat on the table next to me, and I kept my flashlight in hand. I managed to calm down a little, so I turned off the flashlight and tried to get some sleep. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone might still be in the house. I got back out of bed, slid my chair in front of the door to block it, and checked the closet again, just to be sure. Once more, I lay back down, but this time I left the flashlight on as a makeshift nightlight. Then, the most disturbing thing I've ever experienced happened. I heard a soft bump from under my bed, followed by the creak of the bed springs. That's when I realized, like an idiot, I hadn't checked under the bed. My stomach dropped and I leaned over the side of the bed to peer underneath. What I saw was horrifying. An extremely thin woman with bloodshot eyes and yellow teeth staring back at me. She was grinning, a twisted, unnatural smile that I can't get out of my head. We locked eyes for several seconds as I tried to process what I was seeing. Then, I swear to God, she cackled like a witch. At that moment, every instinct in my body screamed, "Nope." I jumped out of bed, moved the chair as fast as I could, and sprinted down the hall to my grandparents' room. I banged on their door as loudly as possible, yelling for my grandfather. He was out in seconds, holding a gun, something I didn't even know he owned. We rushed back to my room and we barely caught a glimpse of a white figure disappearing out of the bedroom window. My grandfather fired a shot, likely as a warning. We didn't call the police because, without security cameras or any idea who she was, we figured they wouldn't be able to do much. All I can guess is that the woman, possibly dangerously ill, saw my light before the power went out, and decided to enter the house. I don't know what her intentions were or if she was even fully aware of what she was doing. We're getting locks installed on all the windows and doors next week, just to be safe. All I can say is, even if you live in a safe area or a trusted community, bad things can still happen. You always need to take precautions. I was at the perfect young age where being left home alone felt exciting. I was about 13, and my parents had recently started trusting me to stay home alone overnight. The only rule was that I couldn't leave the house or have anyone over, which was fine by me. There was something thrilling about being able to blast my music or play video games without my dad yelling at me. To top it off, it was a rainy night that turned into a thunderstorm. I sat outside for a while, watching the storm, as I always do. I've always loved thunderstorms because they make staying in so much cozier. After a while, I moved my Xbox from my room to the den downstairs, where my dad's huge flat-screen TV and Bose sound system were set up. The only time I could play there was when I was home alone, and I loved it. The den was half a flight of stairs down from the living room, level with the backyard. The door to the backyard was in the den. I'm describing the house in the past tense because I've since moved out, though my parents still live there. I was playing Black Ops in the den with the volume blasting. I was in an online multiplayer match, chatting with my friend Cody. I had an old, lousy headset where the only thing you could hear was other people talking in the lobby. For a 13-year-old, it was a perfect night until something interrupted my peace. The doorbell rang. It was past 9 by then. I told Cody, and he suggested I check who it was. I thought it might be my parents home early, but they had keys, so they wouldn't ring the bell. I found a safe spot in the game, ran upstairs and called out, "Who's there?" I didn't realize how much of a mistake that would be. A man's voice responded, saying, "I need to use your phone." I didn't know what to do, so I didn't answer and went back downstairs. But it was too late. I'd let whoever was outside know I was home. I told Cody, and his reaction was, "Yo, what the..." He agreed I shouldn't open the door, and after the bell rang once more, it stopped. After a while, I relaxed, thinking whoever was out there had left. It's hard to explain the emotional roller coaster I felt that night. One moment I was on edge, and the next, I was relaxed and back into my game. Then, just as I felt the most at ease, I heard something to my right. When I looked, I saw the back door closing and a tall man stepping inside. He wasn't my dad. He was a stranger. I dropped the controller and ran for the office door, yanking my headset cord out of the controller. I made it into the office and slammed the door shut. No exaggeration, the very second I locked it, the handle began shaking violently as the man tried to get in. The office had 2 doors, one leading to the den and the other to the garage. My only escape was through the garage, but before moving, I froze, listening. Seconds felt like minutes. The man knocked and said, "Little boy, I just need to use your phone." I'm stranded in the rain. His knocks turned to pounding as his voice grew louder and angrier, eventually shouting, "Open the door, you little..." It sounded like he was trying to break the door down. I had no choice but to flee through the garage. I pressed the button to open the garage door, hoping he wouldn't hear it. As soon as it was halfway up, I crawled under and sprinted through the storm to my neighbor Julian's house. I rang the bell, praying not to see anyone following me. Julian answered, and I rushed into his arms, begging for help as his wife appeared, confused. When I explained the break-in, their expressions immediately changed. Julian called the police, who arrived at my parents' house shortly after. After a long wait, Julian and I went outside to meet the officers. I told them what had happened, and they asked which door had been unlocked. I said the garage, A couple of officers went inside, and after about 5 minutes, they came out with a man in handcuffs. They made sure he didn't see me. When the police asked if I knew him, I said no, of course. The man had been telling them that this was his house and that I was his son. I could tell he was either drunk, high, or just out of his mind based on the things he was yelling and how he was acting. He was taken to jail, and my parents had to decide how to proceed. They pressed charges. His name was John McCarty, and he was charged with criminal trespassing. Knowing that one day this man would be released and know where I lived didn't make me feel safe. Luckily, it was just a random encounter, and I don't think he targeted me or our house specifically. He never returned after being released. It was August when my girlfriend Cass and I went upstate for a weekend getaway at my family's rustic mobile home. It has running water, electricity, and a toilet, so we call it luxury camping. The home is small, about 600 square feet, with one bedroom, a pull-out couch in the living room, one bathroom, and a very small kitchen. Despite its remote location, there's plenty to do, including archery, shooting, dirt biking, and off-roading. We had a whole little itinerary planned for the weekend. On Friday, we mostly unpacked, went out to eat, did some grocery shopping, and then relaxed. Saturday, we did most of the activities I mentioned until the clouds began to gather, signaling a big storm was on the way. We felt the storm brewing in the air, so we quickly packed up everything and put it back into the outbuilding. We decided to settle in for the evening, putting a movie into the DVD player as we cooked dinner. While we were eating, a sudden torrential downpour began pounding on the roof. Soon, loud cracks of thunder and flashes of lightning struck directly overhead. We both wanted to enjoy the storm outside, so we relaxed on the deck under the canopy, which gave us a stunning view of the night sky. Lightning bolts lit up the dark sky, and the thunder followed almost immediately, signaling we were right in the heart of the storm. Then we heard something unusual, a voice calling out from the woods. The place is extremely remote, so hearing any voice in normal conditions would be alarming, but during a storm it was extremely concerning. We assumed it might be a lost hiker. I stepped to the edge of the deck, getting slightly wet as the rain blew under the canopy. With the frequent flashes of lightning, I could see just far enough to the tree line where I spotted someone. I told Cass, and she instantly freaked out, thinking I was joking. I debated whether to call out and offer help, but something held me back. I was scared. I didn't want to ruin the weekend for Cass, so I told her it was probably a hiker and that we shouldn't worry unless they came to the door. I suggested we go inside, nudging her in. I went back to the edge of the deck, my curiosity getting the better of me. As I looked out, another flash of lightning illuminated the figure. This time, much closer, only about 20 feet away. I saw a man standing still, wearing bright-colored clothes. That was the scariest part. He wasn't moving. I quickly went inside and locked the door. Cass saw the fear on my face, and I'm sure I stammered as I told her, "I don't know who that is." Her worry deepened. I tried to keep her calm, saying we should expect a knock at the door from someone seeking shelter. The next 5 minutes felt like an eternity, listening to the storm rage outside. Then we heard footsteps on the deck. Instead of a knock, there was a strange shuffling noise, like someone trying to open the door. At that point, my worry peaked and adrenaline kicked in. Cass was already hiding in the bedroom, calling for me. The noise at the door stopped, but there was never a knock. I went to the bedroom and told Cass to stay quiet. I returned to the living room, turned off the lamp, and took a moment to breathe before pulling open the curtain. I saw the white figure of the man running away from the window, disappearing into the storm.